All right, we're taking a look at topic 5-4, looking at example 2, looking at the additive property of inequalities. So let's get right into this. Right, as we work with this idea, we understand that it is very, very similar to equations with equal signs. The difference is we're going to deal with a inequality expression, greater than, less than, something like that. So the weather forecast predicted that the evening temperature could get as low as negative 12 degrees, 12.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Between afternoon and evening, the temperature dropped by 7.5 degrees Fahrenheit. And the forecast was still correct. What could the average afternoon temperature, in other words T, have been? All right, breaking this down. What we want to know is we need the temperature to be larger than this number, but it also, to find the original temperature, it has to be able to decrease by this much before getting to this. All right, so how are we going to solve this? Wrong button. Here we go. We start with what we know. We start with what we don't know. We know there is a temperature of T, and T might start working. Come on. I apologize. It's being silly. All right, getting this started now. All right, so we have this idea of T, starting temperature. That's the temperature we don't know. What we do know, though, is that it dropped in the afternoon 7.5 degrees. So the temperature is going to go down at least 7.5 degrees. The other thing we know is that the temperature cannot be less than this number. So in other words, this total has to be greater than or equal to this number right here, the 12.5. With that being said, we can go ahead and solve this problem. And in this case, because it's addition and subtraction, we're going to do the exact same thing we did with when this symbol was an equal sign. We're going to use our inverse operations, and we're going to follow that pattern. So if we're subtracting subtracting 7.5, we're going to add 7.5 to this side. That's inverse operation. If I do it to one side, I also have to do it to the other side. So now I'm going to add 7.5 to this side. Now, we take this into consideration, so that would be negative 7.5 plus 7.5 is going to give you an answer of 0. So it's only going to leave T left on this side. Symbol is going to stay the same on addition and subtraction. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to solve this problem. Right? Negative 12.5 plus 7.5. And so when you have two different signs, a negative and a positive, they're going to take the absolute values and subtract them. So in other words, 12 minus 7.5, which gives me an answer of 5. And because the negative is larger than the positive, it's going to stay negative. So in the end, we have this expression, T is greater than or equal to negative 5. And of course, that would be negative 5 degrees Fahrenheit. And as we go back to look at our problem, we would see that this is exactly what we needed to do. So going back here, we look at the problem setup, right? The equality here added to both sides came away with this expression. Right? They also show you how to graph it then, right? Graphing inequalities, put the number greater than equal on the negative 5, and because the arrow is pointing this way, we want to be larger than that. The arrow is going to go that way. All right, go ahead and work through the try it for example number 2. All right, hopefully you solved example number 2. Let's get on to example number 3 then. So it says solve the inequality, then graph the solution. So x minus 1/2 is less than negative 2/3. All right, so we have our problem set up, and once again, we're just gonna start to follow our rules of equality. So we have a negative 1/2, so we're going to add a 1/2, right? Doing the opposite, inverse. And then if I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other side. And I'm gonna go ahead and show it like this, because it's gonna help us in our next step, all right? As I look at this, these are going to cancel each other out, and we're going to be left with x alone on this side, and it's going to be less than. And then I have to add these two fractions together, negative 2/3 and positive 1/2. Now to add them together, I need a common denominator. 3 and 2 is not common, but I know that 6 is. So 2 times 3 equals 6. So that gives me not 6 over 6, 3 over 6. And then if I were to multiply this side by 2, I would get, squeezing it in here now, I would get 4 over 6, and that's a negative. All right, I'm going to rewrite that so we can solve that easier. So now we have negative 4/6 plus a 3/6. So once again, our denominator is going to stay the same. We're going to stay with the 6. Right? The negative is bigger than the positive, so it's going to stay negative. And 4 minus 3 is 1. And so in the end, our expression says x is less than negative 1. All right. From here, we're going to graph that. And so we drew the line, and good place to start is always at 0. And now we're going by 6, so we can really break it up into something like that. Right? I'm going to put a couple whole numbers. So we have 1, negative 1, and then that's half, so that's 3/6. I should have written negative 3/6 there. Right? Which would mean this would be negative 1/6. All right, so we have a less than symbol, right? This symbol. So we need an open circle there. And then we got to make sure that x is going to be less than that. So change colors. I have an arrow going that way. And because the variable is on the left, it's actually going to match this points that way. So that's where our line should go. All right, with that being said, that walks us through the steps of adding and subtracting our different variables. And then we can check our work. Right. Okay. They didn't show the increments the same, but that is 1/6. Arrow going to the left. All right. And then this is your try it then, so go ahead and solve example 3 try it in your book and be ready to discuss this concept when you get to class. All right, that's it for topic 5-4.